What is up, everybody? Today I'm joined by my good friend, fashion expert, blogger, Instagram influencer, Liz Savetsky. We've known each other way too long.
Way too long.
I think we go back about 10 years. So first, I want to thank you for coming today. I know how busy you are and with your little ones and all the things you have going on. So first, foremost, thank you for coming. Secondly, I'm just excited to pick your brain because I've had the opportunity of following you from I feel like our careers have mirrored each other in a lot of ways. And for those of you who don't know, I did Liz's wedding 10 years ago, and she was one of the first crossover weddings for me into the high-end New York City Jewish market. So, if not the first. So just to preface it with that, but right after your wedding, you got really into blogging. Mm-hmm. And I saw you start that, and then obviously with the advent of Instagram and Facebook and all those things that came along with it, you started from ground up and built this really amazing following brand. And I think the better part of the way to describe it is really a business, because people think of influencing, oh, you just post pictures on Instagram. And I think that sells it short, because the amount of time and effort to actually build a brand where other brands want you to represent themselves is a massive undertaking.
Right.
And you've done it. And here we are.
I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but, you know.
So if you could, like, give me some input, like, just for people out there right now who are like, okay, they follow your handle. If you could, on the background of that, right, what goes into developing a handle, a following, and a brand like yours?
So I think the first ingredient and the most important is definitely passion. I think if you're getting into it to make money, this is not the industry for you, because it takes a long time until it becomes lucrative. And, and I also feel like if you're trying to grow an audience, your audience is, you're going to need an openness and authenticity and realness there. And your audience is going to see through it if you're just endorsing something for money. Mm-hmm. And so I really believe that passion is the number one. And I got into it because I was working full-time at this fashion PR company, and I felt a little bit creatively stifled. I love to write, and so I just thought, well, this will be like a good little side, I wouldn't even say side hustle, because I never thought I would make money doing it, mm-hmm. but like a side gig, like a side hobby, where I could just flex those writing muscles that I enjoy using. And I was writing articles about up-and-coming accessories designers and accessories trends, and then once social media came to the forefront, and by social media I really mean Instagram, mm-hmm. because that's my main platform, I was able to really transition from more of an anonymous writer, of a fashion journalist, mm-hmm. to just someone who shared my life. And I never heard the word influencer. I mean, none of us had heard that. Like,
sure.
Like, what do you mean? You're under the influence, honey? Like, what does that mean? And so, I didn't understand what it meant to be sharing my life. And, I was putting myself out there, and I couldn't believe that people cared. I'm like, they want to see me going to the gym in the morning? Like, they care what I'm making for dinner for my family? And it was just like this new territory. And I think having that authenticity and openness, and having that relationship with your followers, I'd say would be my second ingredient. So mm-hmm. my first would be passion, and my second would be like relationship, authenticity. So. And
then, I don't think people realize how much goes into, when you're developing those relationships, how much time it takes to respond to all those messages and inquiries that you're getting once your platform grows to the level yours has.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure even for you, it's really
nowhere
really
near, I'm sure, as much, but
no, and it is hard, and it's always been important to me to have an open dialogue with mm-hmm. my followers. But I mean, there are for sure moments, especially like if I'm putting something super controversial out there, and I know I'm going to get hit hard, mm-hmm. and it is hard to respond to everyone, but I really do try to do it. I think it is important. It's funny, my husband actually, he says that I'm a terrible communicator. He's like, you don't answer my phone calls, but you're responding to your DMs. I'm like, but this is my business. Like, like I have to talk to my audience.
We love Ira.
We love him. He's like, are you ever going to answer my calls?
So I know what I thought was really interesting is, while you were building your brand, I know in the beginning kids weren't necessarily as involved. Right. But I thought what's really cute is as you've evolved that, and I'm sure this comes into balancing work life, like how you want to spend time with your kids, but you want to work, right. But you've incorporated your kids into your brand in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I think that's been I mean, I'm looking from the outside in, right? But I think it probably serves twofold. One is it's fun because you get to be with the kids.
Right.
But number two is like as a mom, you're balancing that work-life balance and just incorporating the kids into work and vice versa.
Right. And it really hasn't been an easy journey. As you know, you did our first photo shoot for my older daughter, Stella, as a baby, and she cried the entire time. And then you did our first family shoot together. She cried the entire time. So it wasn't the easiest path into getting them to want to be a part of the whole, Instagram situation and photo shoots and this and that. But they've really, they've really begun to understand the value of delayed gratification and knowing that like if they perform and they do a good job, then they're going to get rewarded. And I don't think that it's ever too young to teach work ethic. My parents, I worked my entire life. Like my parents were, raised me to always have a strong work ethic. And I really attribute so much of my success to that, and I want to do the same thing for my daughter. So I do get a lot of judgment from people that say, oh, you show too much, or it's not nice that you make your kids do all these photo shoots and this and that. But I have a really positive outlook on it, and like you said, I'm getting to spend time with them, and I think that's wonderful. And the truth is, actually, most of our photos that we do together, my husband takes, Ira, and he's a pretty good photographer. And we do them on the phone, and we keep it laid back and informal, and then they always get rewarded. Because I think, and especially like if I'm getting paid by a brand for a job, then I feel like it's only fair that they should be getting paid as well if they're participating in that.
At what moment were you like hit the tipping point where you're like, all right, my hobby/passion is now turning into a viable business where major national or international brands are reaching out to you to represent their work or their products? Right.
So about 3 years ago, I was still working full time, and Ira, I call it a come to Jesus meeting. I'm Jewish, but I'm from the South. He said, Lizzie, you're never going to get to the next level if you don't just take the risk and just go for it. And for him to say that to me as a resident who had never made a real paycheck, knowing it was risky, that I was going to be getting rid of my stable paycheck to take on this, like freelance, scary new territory that influencers were just starting to get paid. Sure. Nobody even knew what was going to happen with that or how long it would last. But he really believed in me, and he said, I really think that you should just, jump off the cliff and do it, go for it. And I remember calling my parents, and I was like, I'm going to take the blog full time. I'm going to quit my job. And they were like, what's a blog? I'm like, that thing I do, like that where I write. It's a website, But I think having Ira's support was huge for me because it was really scary. Starting your own business, there's never a good time to do it. And I think if you don't fully commit, then it's always just going to be a hobby. And I was starting to make money, but it was nowhere near what I was making at my job. But sure. I think that there was a moment where I just took the plunge, and thank God it paid off. It definitely took a while, but I think if you don't invest in yourself with time and money, then you're never going to get anywhere. So,
what was your mindset at the moment you were like, all right, fuck it, I'm going for this?
I would say it was a combination of fear and excitement. I tend to be like a glass half empty kind of girl, and like my husband's the opposite. He's very optimistic, and so it's a good balance. So I was definitely scared. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to buy nice shoes again. Hopefully some brand will send some to me. But I was also really excited because I felt like I was going to be able to devote all of my energy to me and to invest. When you're giving your whole heart and soul to somebody else and your name isn't on it, it kind of soul crushing if you're a creative person. So to be able to put all of your work into your own brand, into your own name, it was like thrilling, absolutely exciting.
And then you mentioned something, in our conversations. We talked about when you put yourself out there publicly, there's an easier for people to go towards a negative bias, right? Because it's always easier to throw hate than throw what I would say, which would be love. To be like, wow, holy shit, she doubled down on herself. She was dating a resident. Also, people look at that and go, oh my God, how lucky, when people don't realize residents actually make lower money than Starbucks baristas in the beginning. And on top of that, pick up massive amounts of debt, which they now need to pay off as a practicing physician, which, by the way, takes almost like 14 years with your husband's specialty till he'll, like, people don't ever, people think that, like, it's you graduate medical school and it's like, they don't understand. Wait, no, it's like another 5 years to specialize. Then you pay your dues.
Right.
Then you get to join a prestigious practice and actually make some money. You might be almost 40 until that happens.
Talk
now.
about investing in yourself.
So, like, people, I think, from the outside could then go, oh my God, she's married to this good-looking New York City surgeon.
Right.
And it's like, yes, which is true. Those are facts. Yes, your husband's a surgeon. He happens to be good-looking, right? He's a handsome guy. You have two beautiful children. But there's so much more that goes into that until you get to that point.
Totally.
And it's a massive undertaking.
Totally.
And it's, I think, always easier to look from the outside and not see the struggles or... Again, and yes, we are privileged. We live in Manhattan. We live nice lives. I live a nice life. I know you do as well.
Yeah.
And we are so much luckier than so many other people. But there's still massive obstacles to overcome and hurdles that we have to overcome. And it's not always easy as it may seem on social media.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I always joke that an overnight sensation is 7 years. And I think I'm just hitting the 7-year mark. And people are like, oh, this new up-and-coming blogger. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But
You're like, I'm 8 years into this now, and now it's just becoming noticed on a bigger platform.
Exactly. And I do actually have a lot to say about the fact that people are easier to spew negativity, especially on social media when they can do it anonymously. And I do think there's something in our human nature that it's like hard for us to be happy for other people. Like I recently had this amazing Forbes article about this trip that I did with this nonprofit in Israel. And it was all about my passion for this organization and this amazing trip I was on. And it was this beautiful article, and I shared it, and I am telling you, I got like 7 messages, maybe like total. And like one of them was like from my dad, And like, it was crazy. I went out to celebrate. We were like, this is a huge deal. It was a big milestone for me. And like no feedback, right? And then like I share my pregnancy losses, which I was very open about because I felt like I felt very lonely when I was going through, I lost 3 pregnancies in 1 year. And it was a really dark time. And I was like, you know what, I can use my platform to help other people and in turn help myself because, sharing is very cathartic and also feeling like I was a part of a larger community of women who had gone through the similar issues. And I'm telling you, when I shared that, it was like thousands of messages. People love you when you're in the gutter and they don't like you when you're, you're on
top of the world.
Top of the world. Yeah. And so it's been really like an interesting social experiment in a way. Not that I would have ever intended it for it to be that. And I think you just have to like really have a thick skin and know that you're doing what you're doing, like I said in the beginning, from a passion. And then you are able to really drown out the noise, whether it's good or bad. You can't be so bothered by it. You have to just focus on what you're passionate about and sharing that. And because, you're going to get hate. It's just, you get the Yelp reviews, and Ira always says like the curse is like if he gets like one bad Yelp review, like you're screwed for life. But like it's just inevitable.
I almost feel bad.
Negative.
Well, I feel bad. Like this is my thought on it. Anyone who has as much free time to write negative reviews online, I actually feel bad for.
Totally.
Like I genuinely go, wow, that person.
Get a life.
Exactly. Like, I've personally, I think in 18 years left one negative review of a hotel, and it was like the most disgusting place I ever walked into, and they wouldn't give me a refund because I wanted to check out. And I was like, all right, look, I'm actually going to write this review, and they were just like, go for it. And they finally gave me my money back, but it was so disgusting. I'm like, but on a daily basis, people just spew negativity online.
They do.
And I think it's just people it's their own insecurities and own jealousies just coming out towards you.
Definitely.
But on a more positive note, I know something that you talked about, passion, work, right? And I know your work you're very passionate about, but you're also very passionate about being Jewish.
Very.
And you and Ira do a ton of work in raising awareness, number one, but also raising money for people who aren't as fortunate as us. And I don't think you probably don't get enough credit for that because I know that's something that's equally as passionate about your work and like what you did this past weekend and all those things that go into being part of your larger community. And I know that you have a deep-rooted passion towards your Judaism.
Definitely, yeah. And I think when you have a platform like the one that I accidentally built here, then you have a responsibility to do something with it. You have a microphone, and so what are you going to do with it, and what are you going to say? And I think you have to be very strategic and careful about what message you share. And for me, it's always been so important to use my platform to convey meaning and a deeper message than just pretty outfits and matching mommy and me looks. And this, I mean, that's all great. And I'm so happy that that brings people to my page. But I hope while they're there that they get a deeper, more purposeful message.
Where does your faith come from?
It's a,
Other
how
than
much
being a
time do you have?
other than being a Southern girl.
You know, I think I really I look at my children. I definitely have moments where my faith wavers, especially after this past year that I had was very hard. And it is, you know, Judaism doesn't really subscribe to blind faith. We're much more like into, this is truth. They're into the rabbis that I've learned with in the Orthodox world are into like proving to you that God exists. And so it's, but there are moments, of course, where you don't feel it as much, and it's just not as strong. And so for me, like when I look at my kids, that's huge because to me, that's like the miracle of life. And like I think about my husband's grandma. She came out of Auschwitz, 78 pounds, and I look at my children and I'm like, these two girls are direct descendants from a Holocaust survivor, and their existence is a miracle. And like just that alone gives me so much faith in God and you know the strength of human life.
And how is from a business standpoint, how has your faith helped you and your belief in Judaism helped you as an entrepreneur and a businesswoman?
You know, it's really interesting. I never really intended to share so much of my Judaism with my audience. But it's like you have to cater to your audience. And I started to realize pretty early on that my core base of loyal followers were Jews in New York, like me.
Sure.
And so I'm like, when I talk to my audience, I really feel like I'm talking to myself. And I'm like, if I was going to hold back that part of me, then I wouldn't feel like I was sharing my authentic self. And so it's always been important to me to share. And, you know, I get a lot of messages even from my non-Jewish followers that love learning about Judaism and love when I share my passion for Israel. And I love that so much. The problem that I have, which I've been running into a lot lately, is the Jews who are ashamed of their Judaism. And they don't like it that I'm out there proud, waving the flag, because they feel ashamed. For whatever reason. And, you know, it's pretty rampant, self-hating
We're in
Jews
a
these
really
days.
interesting political climate.
really
So I
are.
think that
It doesn't help
separate
things.
podcast.
Yeah, it doesn't help things, though. But yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with being proud of who you are and where you're from. Like I tell people all the time, I'm super proud that my dad was not born in this country, didn't speak English when he came over at 21 years old and built a life for himself.
Totally.
And we're Latin American, you know, and then I'm half Spanish, right? So, but that's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to embrace and be proud of, in the same way that, you know, you're so proud that without your husband's grandmother, none of this, literally, like if you think about it, you go deep, you're not sitting here. Your kids aren't sitting here.
Totally.
You're not married to him because he's not here.
Right.
So all that comes into, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with being proud of that.
Totally. And I think the resilience that they had when your father and Ira's grandmother and all of the people that came before us that built this beautiful life so that we could sit here today and have the careers that we have and the lives that we have, you know, that resilience is a part of the fabric of our beings. And it's become a part of us.
Yeah, we're all immigrants in some way, shape, or form, and without and they had it so much. I mean, you know, again, anyone who survived the Holocaust had it a million times worse than what we live today. So I don't think we can ever even have a basis of understanding of what that was like for that group of people, and the fact that they survived and all those things. I don't think we could ever. As much as we may try to empathize with that, I don't think anyone who is not in that situation could ever imagine what it's like.
We can't,
You know, to have everything stripped away from you, your pride, your dignity. In many cases, your family was, could be killed, and you're lucky to be alive. So and then we have people spewing negative hate on Instagram. That's what I'm like, what?
It's really crazy. It's really crazy, but it does put things in perspective. Because you know, I think whenever, you know, somebody yesterday said, oh, you're such a narcissist that you were advertising that you were an honorary Grand Marshal at the Israel Day Parade. And I'm like, no, I'm a proud Jew. And you know what? Like, I'm standing up for all the people who can't.
Yep.
And, you know, I'm happy to be the vessel for that. I don't feel like it's for me. I feel like it's on behalf of the
Sure.
Jewish people as a nation.
Sure. And you said something before, and I know you were really public about this, and I know you got a lot of positive and a lot of negative feedback from sharing your miscarriage.
Right.
It's miscarriages, I should
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
I want to preface that by saying you're blessed with 2 beautiful daughters,
Yes,
right?
thank God.
For whatever reason, 3 miscarriages later.
Right.
How did that affect? I mean, I can imagine that's got to be. I mean, other than the emotional, hormonal roller coaster that comes with that.
Poor Ira.
Poor Ira. But poor you. No, I mean,
Right.
but really, like, how did you, like, on a day-to-day basis? I'm sure there were some mornings where you just didn't want to get out of bed and do a photo shoot. You had to, or you just didn't want to deal with whatever life was going on. And I think that's the interesting paradigm is that you were very public about what most people would never share, right? So we portray this perfect life,
Right.
whereas I feel like you were very real about it. You're like, no, life kind of sucks right now, and I'm going through some like heavy shit. I feel like crap. I just had another miscarriage. We're blessed to have 2 kids. We wanted a third. I know you wanted a big family.
Yeah.
That may not happen.
Right.
But I still have responsibilities to my 2 children. I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner and all those things. So how did you get through that?
I think, so, when I made the decision to share it, it was very impulsive, actually. I was sitting alone on my couch. I had actually an ectopic pregnancy that ruptured, and I had to have like an emergency surgery. And my mom, thank God, she came and got my girls and took them to Texas. I have an amazing mom who's so supportive. I don't know what I would do without her. And Ira was at work, and I was just alone in my apartment sitting on the couch, and I just was so sad. I was just like in this really dark place, and I was like, you know what? Like, I share so much on social media. I share all the good. Everyone thinks I live this beautiful, perfect life. Like, they need to know that there's another side to this. And if I feel like I can share all the good and all the beautiful stuff, then I should be able to share the bad too. Because I think, it's not painting a full picture. And if people are looking at social media can really be a breeding ground for jealousy. And I don't ever want somebody to come to me and walk away feeling bad about themselves. I want them to feel inspired. And so I really felt like this impulse and obligation to share, because I said, I want people to know that social media is not always the full picture. And so I'm going to tell you the full picture now.
Yeah.
And it also gave me so much purpose with my pain, because I felt like by helping people through their struggles, by sharing and making them feel like they weren't alone, it really helped me. And I think also at that point, then I felt like it was like this weight had been lifted off my shoulders, because I was going to have to get up and do photo shoots and go to work and take care of my kids and live a normal life.
Life doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
But it felt like because I had shared this secret, it wasn't my dirty little secret anymore. And now I could, it would be okay if I had a breakdown here and there. And, I felt like I'm a human being, and I don't need to just be this like perfect light to everyone all the time. And honestly, like, I think it was one of the best decisions that I ever made.
I think that's the issue too. We're talking about as we talk about social media is that there's this portrayal of perfection,
Totally.
which I mean, like yesterday was a beautiful day. I had a great day. It was a perfect day. But there's days I wake up and I'm like, today's just not a great day. Like life, stress, work, family, all those things happen. We don't ever post on family like. I mean, on social media, I see very few. Today really sucked. It's always today's amazing, and then you talk to the person. Well, my dog died. Well, today wasn't amazing.
Right.
It's okay that it wasn't amazing. Your dog passed away. You could put. My dog passed away. Today sucked. Whatever that day is, but we don't ever see the darker side of life, or in this case, the struggles that you went through. And I think I commend you for being really public about that, because I'm sure there's other women who probably saw that and said, "Shit, I've been feeling horrible, or I've been depressed,
Oh
or
my God, you have no idea, Anthony.
My hormones literally are so out of whack," which I don't think people realize when the miscarriage, your body's now reacting to that. And I'm sure that comes with.
Oh my God.
You probably wake up and just don't even know why you feel a certain way some days.
100%,
on top of the emotional aspect of having lost a potential future family member.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
How did you balance that out with being supportive and having Ira be supportive of you?
It's so hard to explain to a man what it feels like, because there's no explanation. But something, he was pretty amazing. In our relationship, we're polar opposites. You know that. This is Ira, and this is me. So it's like he really is kind of like the voice of reason, and I need that because I'm artistic and psycho. So, so he was pretty supportive. I couldn't have asked for a better partner, but the third loss really hit him hard. And I don't think he saw that coming. And Ira is such a, he's a surgeon and he wants to fix everything, and I think that's also like a very masculine quality.
Without a doubt. We want to fix. We're repairers of problems.
Totally.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, like, tell me the problem and I'll find a solution.
Correct.
And he's also like a terrible loser, which I think, like, tell me how to win and I'm going to, and it's like all of a sudden this is completely out of our control. We've now had 3 losses in a row and I think he just felt so defeated. And it was really hard to watch that because I'd never seen him break down, but it brought us so much closer together. And I think when you couples go through challenging periods like that, you either grow closer or you grow further apart. And I think our relationship today is stronger than it's ever been. And a lot of that is because of this past year and the challenges that we went through. And seeing him be vulnerable, which he never is, really it broke down a wall between us that I didn't even really know was there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we commend Ira for being vulnerable.
Yeah. Sorry, Ira.
So, right now, what's on the horizon? I know there's some changes coming up. Can we talk about those?
We can talk about it. So we're moving to Dallas for 1 year, which I'm not thrilled about, but I'm trying to like treat it as.
Let's preface it by Liz is from Texas originally.
So. I am. I'm from Fort Worth. I grew up singing on a country music show. Yeah. And so Ira's going there for 1 year to do a fellowship in aesthetic plastic surgery.
Awesome.
And then we'll be back in a year. Yeah, we plan to come back to Manhattan. We both really like it here.
So I can imagine the photo shoots will be changing up with the Southern
I'm
flair, right?
Freaking out.
Yeah,
what
where
do
are we
I
shooting
do?
in Dallas?
Yeah, where are we shooting in Dallas? Like in my driveway? Like how is this going to look? Like it's so easy to be a blogger in New York City. You just walk out on a street corner and everything is cool. Like you and I take a photo in 2 seconds. Like you come to Dallas, all of a sudden it's like I shoot almost everything in focus. In Dallas, I'm going to be having to do a lot of depth of field. It's going to have to be.
We'll work on those photos.
Yeah, exactly.
Portrait mode.
Yeah, portrait mode, exactly.
What's on the horizon business-wise? I know, like, what can we talk about what brands you'll be working with coming up?
Well, so this is a big deal for me. I just signed with an agency called Estate 5. And they are based in Dallas, but they have a whole lot of team members on the ground in New York. And it was a big deal for me because I've been handling everything. I've been a one-woman show for the past 7 years, and doing this full-time for the past 3. And so it's been a lot to be able to have to manage the business, the creative, there's not enough hours in the day. And I hadn't felt like I was ready to relinquish. I'm a very bad delegator up until this point, and this agency just felt like it was really the right fit. And I'm working with a lot of different brands, everything from like beauty, anti-aging, which is great because I love any project that Ira and I can collaborate on. And because he's a plastic surgeon, like anti-aging stuff is always like great for the two of us. I feel like we just like really bring out the best in each other when it comes to business. So I've gotten a lot more into that. I'll always do fashion and Mommy and Me, and I've been working a lot with like some bigger brands like Oscar de la Renta, which has been great. And then, the biggest shift in my business lately has been my public, work with different nonprofit Jewish organizations. And I've been doing a lot more public speaking and just a lot more standing up for Israel and that sort of thing. And that's really also become a big part of my business. And that's been amazing. And thank God my audience has let me pivot and do that because it's very scary when you're transitioning and you've spent so long building something up and you don't know if your followers are going to be along for the journey. Like if tomorrow you decided you were done with weddings and like it's like scary So thank God, they've been a part of that transition. And I think I'm going to continue to go in that direction because I don't really foresee myself 5-10 years down the road taking outfit photos. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I will, but I would love to have more longevity and doing more of the nonprofit work and Jewish work, and standing up for and advocating on behalf of Israel has been, the meat of that.
So fair to say, like 5-year plan, broaden that platform.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So if you were giving advice to someone who wants to become prevalent and noteworthy in the social media influencer Instagram world, what would that be? What does that look like? And also, let me preface that by saying, in 2019, you've been in it for 7 years, highly oversaturated right now because everyone is a quote unquote influencer.
Definitely, yeah. Even my husband's like, "Do you think that this photo will go with my feed?" I'm like, "Baby, like, just stick with surgery." I'm like, "You're not a blogger." So, but
He's
everyone
very well dressed, though. I'll tell you.
he dresses himself. But everyone really is an influencer in their own way. It's so funny, actually. Like, that Ira was telling me that plastic surgery, like nose jobs, have changed because people are so used to seeing their selfies, their faces, and so they want a different tip now than they did 10 years ago because everyone's taking selfies.
Makes total sense.
And
They want to flip down, not flip up.
Yeah, and they know the way that their face looks, like the anatomy of their face, so much more because we're all like staring at ourselves all day. It's crazy. So yeah, everyone is basically an influencer. But I was definitely lucky in the sense that it was right place, right time. Like I got into it at the very beginning, but I do think that in order to maintain my success, the key ingredients have been passion and authenticity and having a niche. And I really think without those three things, it's really hard to become successful. Like there's always going to be someone prettier. There's always going to be someone with more money and nicer bags. There's always going to be someone who's, better at editing photos. Sure. And so, you really have to just be the best version of yourself. And I know that sounds trite, but it's the truth. And I think, my advice would be to be as open as you're comfortable with. And being authentic and real doesn't mean that you still can't have boundaries. I have very little boundaries, but, you could still, you have to ask yourself where that line is and then, just go up right to it. Because people want to feel like they know you. And I think there's something to be said for being equal parts aspirational and attainable. Sure. My iPhone photos perform much better than my real
which I always find to be I find hysterical. Yeah.
Because I think people feel like they can relate to it. It's like they feel like they're a part of your story and they're stepping into your day-to-day life, even if like I am in some exotic location wearing some crazy like borrowed expensive gorgeous dress that I could never actually afford, whatever. But it's relatable because it's like a blurry, like a little bit grainy, or And so I think. I think that you want to make people dream, but you also want to make them feel like that they know you and they could do it too.
If you were looking back 10 years from now, 10 years from today, what is a question I ask everyone I have on the show?
God, I'm nervous.
Yeah, no, this is a big one.
Taking a sip.
If you could give yourself one piece of advice that would change your life today, what would it be? One thing you could change, one lesson you learned, but just one thing.
Be in the moment. Be in the moment. I think it's so easy, especially in New York City. Our lives go so fast. There's so many distractions. It's sensory overload all the time. Especially my job is to work from my phone. I'm on my phone all the time. To put the phone down and be in the moment and just focus on actually living and not necessarily capturing the moment, which I think is important too. I do really think it's important to capture the moment so that you have things to look back on. But I think it is more important to live that moment before you capture it. So,
how have you and Ira, what parameters have you set in your relationship? Because I know being on your phone could be literally a 24/7 thing at this point.
So we observe Shabbat, which is amazing because every week from Friday night sundown until Saturday night sundown, we have 25 hours where we don't use our phones, and it is amazing. Unless Ira's on call, of course. We don't use our phones, and we really just focus on each other and our family, and it's a really amazing reset. I don't know how people live without it, to be honest, especially because it's like my dad is addicted to his phone. It's cross-generational. Like,
we're all addicted at this point. Crazy. Children to grandparents. There's
Well, it's really sad to see, and I don't want to live life like that, and I hope it goes the other way a little bit. I hope we start to see some of that turning.
Sure.
And so I think that's really critical for us. And then we do date night at least twice a week, and we don't have our
mandatory.
Phones out. Mandatory. Date night. We don't have our phones out unless we do Instagram Live sometimes where we do Q&A, and that's the only time that a phone is allowed. involved. So,
But you've integrated Ira into that, so it almost, I feel like he has fun with it too,
he
to be
loves
honest. Yeah, he loves
it.
it.
Yeah, he secretly loves it. Yeah.
So, one thing you had mentioned before, and one thing I noticed on Instagram is you changed your handle name.
Yes.
From a branding perspective, I know changing anything that's so public and so much part of who you are, going from accessory experts to your name, why'd you do that?
It was really scary, actually. Like, I had kind of been thinking about doing it for the past 6 months, and one day I was just finally ready to pull the trigger. But the reason was because I felt like as I had pivoted, as I mentioned before, with my brand from sharing, over time it went from being anonymous articles about accessories to sharing my family, to sharing my passion for Israel. So I felt like it was so much more all-encompassing than just accessories. And even though that is such a huge part of who I am and my identity, it just felt like a grown-up choice to go by my name. And I'm sure you appreciate that.
I do. Yeah,
you do.
and I think it's a brilliant business move because your brand's evolved so much more than just accessories.
Right.
And with that comes the evolution of the name and
Right.
all the other things you're doing.
Why did you decide to go by your name?
So interesting. Flipping the script. All right. So my decision was premised on, I looked at great fashion designers, whether it was brand houses like Louis Vuitton, Tom Ford, and I said they always go by their names, and in most cases.
Carolina
right?
Herrera, Vera Wang,
Yeah, and I said, it just makes sense to not name it the studio or come up with some arbitrary name,
Right.
but to be to go in that sense. I thought from a branding standpoint, it was really important. Secondarily, for me, my last name has a lot of pride, so it was really a way to honor my family and my father. And I think we take that for granted, but we talked about before, like family legacy and having that pride, and I'm very proud of coming from my mom's heritage is a little different. She grew up in New York, but my grandfather had actually come to this country right before World War II, and then he was Italian, but went back over to Europe to fight the Nazis. So he served and wound up giving his life, for that cause.
Oh my God.
Eventually.
Had no idea.
Yep. So he actually he contracted a rare disease in Africa while he was over there fighting in northern Africa, and which led to his death a good amount of time post-war.
Wow.
But he was there. He did serve against his country, which was interesting too because he didn't believe in the regime in Italy and what Mussolini was doing over there. But for my Spanish heritage, my last name, which is Vasquez, my dad came to this country, and I've said this a bunch of times. 21 years old. I think I butcher this all the time, but it's I think 5th grade education. He's the oldest of. They have a lot of children. No one knows how many. We're going to say 9-ish, right? So first one to come to this country, brought his siblings over, came here not speaking the language, washing dishes. Eventually built a life for himself. Now speaks English, obviously. But my dad put in an immense amount of work. He paid for me to go to Catholic school. Ultimately, wound up getting into NYU. But I always said I saw my dad every 7th year on my birthday because that's the day that my birthday fell on his day off. And, the sacrifices that they made for us to be able to do what we're doing right now. So that's the second half of that was, number one, from a branding perspective, which I think is important, but it was something that I knew I would always be proud of. And when I had that governing light of saying, hey, your name is on the door, I can put my name behind it. It goes so much deeper into our purpose, our family, our heritage. It's literally part of who I am. I can never disappoint my name. I can never disgrace my family name. So I think twofold on that.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I relate to that on so many levels. And I felt a lot of the same feelings when I decided to switch to my name. Because, if you are your own brand, you just, the love and TLC that you put into everything that you do is so much greater.
Yeah, and I think now, given our political climate, I think it's really interesting because pride in who you are is almost looked down upon at the moment in a really weird way. That being proud of your Latin heritage or proud of your Jewish heritage, whatever it may be, it's almost like, oh, you can't do that. Unless you fit a certain mold or for a certain prototype, you shouldn't be proud of who you are. Whereas I think we should all be proud and we should all cherish and love who we are.
Wave the flag.
Exactly, whatever your flag is.
Yeah.
Unless, there's certain flags that should be raised. Let me take that back. There's some flags right now that we
Maybe,
should get rid of. But there are plenty of flags that should be raised, that
Right.
should be honored, should be loved, and should be cherished.
Right. Totally.
And one question I have to ask is, what was the greatest, because I feel like you have a unique perspective on this. You went through 3 miscarriages.
Right.
What was the greatest perspective that taught you on life? The greatest lesson you walked away with from that whole experience?
It's hard to pick just one because I really felt like it was such a growing experience in my whole life. But I think gratitude, because until you've lost something, you don't feel how thankful you are for everything you have.
Were you more grateful for the 2 children?
Yes, I looked at them completely differently. And, and so I said to Ira, I said, even if we are never able to have a 3rd child, I feel like that was such a gift to be able to go through something so hard and to come out feeling like so much more grateful.
Yeah.
You would think you would be bitter. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But really, you're grateful.
Because I know you said your glass half empty, so that's
Yeah.
all right.
No,
So
I
we walked
appreciate
away with
that.
more gratitude.
Gratitude. Yeah. I wake up every day and I feel so thankful for the blessings that I have.
And you have 2 beautiful children too, so I mean.
Yeah, and that's something that cannot be taken for granted, You look around at the world and there's so much suffering and there's always something that could go wrong. And so to be able to have all these blessings and to be aware of the blessings is a gift. Because I see so many of my friends who are walking around complaining about nonsense. And, and we're all guilty of it, and I've done it too. But when you've had real pain in your life, then you appreciate beauty and the gifts so much more.
I love it. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know as a mother of 2, packing a household up to go to Dallas soon, and running your business and all the things you have going on, I'm sure it's overwhelming. So I know, Liz, you are easy to find, but if you could, please tell everyone who is listening right now where they can find you, how they can connect with you, best ways to reach you on social, and for brands, how do they get in touch with you?
My name on Instagram is my name, Elizabeth Savetsky. That's Savettsky. And my website is Accessories Expert, spelled EXCESSORIES Expert. And my email is accessoriesexpert, spelled the same way, @gmail.com. And I hope to hear from you.
We'll include links in all our shows.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay,
and
great.
all our show notes for everyone to be able to find you. But I want to commend you. I want to commend you for following your passion. I want to commend you for being proud of your heritage and your faith and sticking to that. And I just want to thank you because you're just an amazing person. And I think of all the people that I've encountered in my career, very few have stayed through the entirety and seen the growth and also been there. And you and Ira have been my biggest cheerleaders, to be quite honest. And I know whether it's a question about the Jewish faith, I can call you anytime. You're my dictionary. Rabbi on call. But you really, I want to thank you guys because I don't think I'd be sitting here today were it not for the 2 of you. I don't think we would have the business we have if it were not for the 2 of you because you guys have spread that word and you've welcomed me wholeheartedly into your family and your community. So I just want to commend you. I want to thank you, and I love you guys.
Love you.
And
Honorary Jew for life.
and thank you for taking the time to do this with me today. I know you're busy, and I appreciate the support always.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Please. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. L'chaim.
L'chaim.